Goodbye Ozzy by Darth Kyserean. Read by Darth Aristisis. There has been a great disturbance in the Force. A voice that reached billions has fallen silent. I didn't have very many outlets as a kid. I grew up in a repressive homeschool taught by a mom whose Christian zeal was a crutch for her own unfulfillment, and it was the source of her increasing paranoia. One outlet I did have, which she fostered, was music. She tried to surround me with classical music and jazz, and later stopped preventing me from indulging in rock when the homeschooling fell apart. She loosened the reins regarding the music I listened to with very gritted teeth. I was still homeschooled on paper, but I was tutored by college students on their campus on the fundamentals. I also had private music instructors, first on piano, then later on guitar and bass guitar. My favorite little prank I did to liven up my classical piano practice was my rearrangement of Bach's Little Fugue in G minor so that I could play it above the opening of Mr. Crowley. I learned to play acoustic before electric, and I insisted on 12-string because I heard it on Mama, I'm Comin' Home. Every guitarist of my generation wants either a Fender Strat, an Ibanez, a custom Kiesel, or an ergonomically contoured Strandberg that looks and feels like it came out of a Copenhagen furniture store. But I wanted a Gibson SG. A heavier sound than a Strat, but lighter on a strap than a Les Paul. The gorgeous red finish over the devilish design. And it was played by Eric and Jack, Angus, and of course, Tony. The very first things I learned to play on guitar were Paranoid, Snowblind, and Black Sabbath, the one on Black Sabbath's Black Sabbath. I worked my way up to mimicking Eric Clapton's solos with Cream when I mastered both Tony's riffs and being able to sing and shout Ozzy's bellows over the riffs. But learning Ozzy's solo material is a serious workout. It's one thing to be able to play the verses of Crazy Train, and a whole other thing to learn Randy Rhoads' solos. Randy was the best guitarist of his generation. Eddie Van Halen and Yngwie Malmsteen, the ones everyone naturally wanted to imitate, knew how to put on a good show. But Randy didn't just have chops. He had a unique musicality on top of his intimidating skill. He was the 20th century Paganini. He made his moments count. Even now, playing his stuff with Ozzy makes me sweat. I later moved on to practicing more modern music of my generation, like System of a Down and Tool, and later took up jazz fusion. But my roots have always been in the hand-me-down CDs and cassette tapes from the 70s and 80s that I got from my family, and Ozzy is one of the most prominent. Does anyone really get over the music of their childhood? There's a feeling we on the right know all too well. An internal rebellion to and isolation from the world we find ourselves in. If you've been swimming in reactionary waters for any amount of time, you know where that feeling comes from. As Paul Joseph Watson's so fond of saying, conservatism is the new punk, which is almost right, but not quite. Yes, leftists are functionaries who think they're rebels. I'm running part of the MAGA agenda. But conservatism is as impotent as the left's defiance is hollow. The left's rebellion is against any imposition or denial of sedative pleasure, and as such, in service to a system that seeks to make the world a farm and every man a sheep. The conservatives' rebellion is against that system's imposition on them, with a curmudgeonly insistence that everything return to the way it was when they were a child. The rebellion of reaction is also against a system that wants to chattel him, but not to return. Our rebellion is in service to our own human spirit and the human spirit in all of man. The drive to live, the vital spirit, the Osbornian Iron Man who rises up to rock. This is not the rush of a fun concert which wears off the next day. This is the drive to live authentically and in your own conditions. Living in the 21st century as a young musician and rock enthusiast is both a blessing and a curse. The boomers aren't leaving much to the next generations, but they are leaving a musical treasure trove. The boomers have the best soundtrack of any generation. And now it's all at my fingertips, freely available whenever I want. And I enjoy it just in time to see all my heroes die. When I heard the news last Tuesday, I simultaneously couldn't believe it and very much could. I expected him to live forever, surviving a nuclear war along with Keith Richards and 3 cockroaches. And he has done multiple farewell shows in my short lifetime, so on paper, the one on July 5th this year would be the same. But he was so frail he couldn't even stand and could barely summon the breath to sing. It was sad and uncomfortable to see him in such a state. But he insisted on the show as a goodbye for his fans, and I can't think of a more metal way to go. When someone dies, what remains is their impact on you. Ozzy's music set me on my path. I never got to see him in concert or meet him in person, but his music was one of the biggest impacts in my life. Ozzy is now one with music, one with the Force, and the Force is with you always.